Well, my friends, this is Canada, and in Canada, better is always possible. Thank you.
A great start for Justin Trudeau. Those numbers prove it. A majority Liberal government and the new 23rd Prime Minister of Canada.
Once hailed as Canada's golden boy of progressive politics, Justin Trudeau now faces the fight of his political life, as the 2025 election looms. After nearly a decade in power, cracks have emerged in the Liberal Party's foundation, leaving many wondering if Trudeau's reign is nearing its end. When Trudeau swept to victory in 2015, he embodied a generational shift in leadership. His message of hope, inclusivity, and transparency resonated with voters disillusioned by years of conservative rule. Yet today, Trudeau's government faces mounting criticism over ethical missteps, economic struggles, and broken promises. Polling numbers paint a grim picture for the Liberals. According to Politico, Trudeau's approval ratings have dropped significantly, reflecting growing dissatisfaction among Canadians grappling with inflation and a housing crisis. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has capitalized on this frustration, positioning himself as the voice of change. But is Trudeau's political obituary premature? The Liberal Party has weathered storms before, and Trudeau's track record still boasts notable achievements, from marijuana legalization to progressive immigration reforms. The real question is whether Trudeau can leverage these successes, or whether voters have already turned the page. This video dives into the key issues behind Trudeau's decline, evaluates his legacy, and examines whether the Liberal Party can find new footing before 2025. It also explores Poilievre's rise and the potential impact of a conservative government on Canada's future. Trudeau's approval ratings have plummeted, reflecting growing public frustration over the rising cost of living, housing affordability, and economic instability. According to Politico, Trudeau's personal approval ratings have dipped below 40%, a troubling sign for a leader once seen as an unstoppable force in Canadian politics. Economic pressures have dominated voters' concerns. Skyrocketing inflation and a housing crisis have hit Canadians hard, particularly younger voters who once formed the backbone of Trudeau's support base. Many feel his government's policies have failed to address these challenges effectively. Ethics scandals have further eroded trust. From the SNC-Lavalin affair to allegations of favoritism, Trudeau's image as a champion of transparency has been tarnished. Critics argue that these controversies highlight systemic issues within his leadership, leaving Canadians skeptical of his commitment to accountability. Moreover, the Liberal Party's internal unity has begun to show cracks. As reported by reputable Canadian news outlets, some MPs are openly questioning whether Trudeau is the right leader to carry the party into 2025. The potential for leadership challenges looms, adding to the uncertainty surrounding the party's future. Political analysts note that Trudeau's progressive policies, once seen as innovative, may now feel out of touch with the financial realities Canadians face.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on holiday, away from Parliament Hill reflecting on his future. But for increasingly more MPs, the decision is clear.
The consensus was that the Prime Minister should step away.
This Quebec Liberal has made it clear for some time she wants Trudeau to go. Now, more of her fellow MPs are joining the call.
That has been the consensus that was communicated to the caucus chair, and that he was meant to convey to the national caucus chair.
According to sources, the Quebec caucus chair has been consulting with MPs in the province. The chair would not confirm the details. But Liberals in Ontario and Atlantic Canada regional Liberal caucuses have signaled that Trudeau should resign. A new public opinion poll by Angus Reid shows support for the Liberals is at an all-time low, at just 16%. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approval rating is also plummeting, now 22%.
These are numbers that are going to really strike the ultimate level of fear into the survival of the party, at least in the short term.
It comes after the explosive resignation of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland earlier this month. This leaves the Prime Minister with little choice, according to some.
I think everybody's expectation is is that at the beginning of this month, the Prime Minister will return to Ottawa and will announce he's resigning.
Political strategists say the party has to consider what happens next and how it will deal with opposition parties who want to topple the Liberal government as soon as Parliament returns at the end of January.
Well, I think prorogation is necessary because the NDP have stated that they will vote down the government at the first confidence motion that's available to them.
Liberals are already preparing for a future without Trudeau. CBC obtained an email circulated among Liberal caucus members. It outlines potentially a path forward that includes prorogation and a short leadership race.
Just to prove how weak and out of control he's become, he just engaged in a mass hallucination, listing off a bunch of programs that actually don't even exist outside of his own head. But if he's not prepared to stand up for the country when it comes to trade, then why don't we have a real election about taxes? He can run on his tiny 2-month tax trick, and I'll run on my common sense plan to axe the tax and axe the sales tax on new homes. How about a carbon tax election now?
Whether he can reverse this slide in popularity will be a defining factor in the upcoming election. Despite mounting criticism, Justin Trudeau's tenure has left an indelible mark on Canada's social and political landscape. His achievements include progressive reforms, international recognition, and policies that reshaped Canada's identity. One of Trudeau's most notable accomplishments is the legalization of recreational marijuana in 2018, positioning Canada as a global leader in drug policy reform. This move not only generated substantial tax revenue, but also reduced the burden on the judicial system and advanced conversations about criminal justice reform. Trudeau's commitment to gender equality has been another hallmark of his leadership. His cabinet's gender parity set a precedent for inclusivity in government, earning international praise.
First of all, I'm going to keep saying loud and clearly that I am a feminist until...
Hear me roar.
Until it is met with a shrug. Why does every time I say I'm a feminist, the Twitterverse explodes and news medias pick it up? It shouldn't be something that creates a reaction. It simply is saying, I believe in the equality of men and women, and I believe that we still have an awful lot of work to do to get there. That's like saying the sky is blue and the grass is green. So the fact that it's still garners a response, positive response, means that we're still going to have to be using that word. And if I can encourage people to use that word more and more often, to say that they're feminists, to say they're raising their children, their daughters obviously to be feminists, but also their sons to be feminists, which is something my extraordinary wife Sophie has drilled into me, that it's not just about empowering my daughter, it's about making sure my sons work as well to empower, their sister, however annoying they are to each other as kids. But that mindset of how we shift perceptions and engagement is something that, yes, we do still have to keep working on, and I'm proud to be able to keep pushing that.
Similarly, his focus on LGBTQ+ rights and Indigenous reconciliation initiatives highlighted efforts to build a more inclusive society. On climate action, Trudeau's carbon pricing policies were groundbreaking, pushing Canada to take more aggressive steps in combating climate change. While critics argue the measures fell short of their goals, supporters view them as foundational for long-term sustainability. In foreign policy, Trudeau positioned Canada as a defender of multilateralism and human rights. His leadership during the Trump presidency emphasized alliances with Europe and other global partners, maintaining Canada's reputation as a stabilizing force in international relations. However, some argue that these achievements have been overshadowed by implementation failures. Indigenous reconciliation efforts, for example, have faced setbacks due to delays and unfulfilled promises, diminishing trust among affected communities. Trudeau's supporters maintain that his policies reflect long-term vision rather than short-term fixes. Yet critics counter that his legacy may be defined more by unfulfilled potential than lasting progress. As the 2025 election nears, Trudeau will need to make a compelling case that his vision for Canada is worth preserving. As questions swirl about Trudeau's leadership, Speculation grows over whether the Liberal Party can find a successor capable of revitalizing its image and reconnecting with disillusioned voters. Several prominent figures have emerged as potential contenders, but doubts linger about their ability to match Trudeau's charisma and appeal. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is often mentioned as a frontrunner. Known for her diplomatic experience and role in negotiating key trade agreements, Freeland brings economic credibility to the table. However, critics argue her association with Trudeau's policies might make it difficult to distance herself from the government's failures. Another possible contender is Innovation Minister François-Philippe Champagne, whose pragmatic approach and business-friendly policies could attract centrist voters. Yet his lower public profile may present a challenge in gaining widespread recognition. Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England, has also been floated as a dark horse candidate. Carney's economic expertise and international stature could counter Poilievre's economic messaging. But his lack of political experience raises questions about his ability to navigate party dynamics. The Liberal Party's success in 2025 may depend on whether it embraces a fresh face or rallies behind Trudeau for one more battle. Either path carries risks. A leadership change could fracture the party further, while sticking with Trudeau risks reinforcing the status quo that voters appear eager to move past. With time running out, the Liberals must make a decisive choice: double down on Trudeau's legacy, or embrace a new vision to re-energize their base. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been presented with a grand opportunity to tap into the discontent facing Trudeau's leadership. His platform centers on affordability, economic growth, and government accountability, issues that resonate with frustrated voters. Poilievre's economic policies focus on reducing inflation by curbing government spending and streamlining regulations. He has pledged to lower taxes, particularly for middle-class Canadians, and to tackle the housing crisis by easing restrictions on construction and increasing housing supply. His emphasis on personal freedom and opposition to COVID-19 mandates have also appealed to libertarian-leaning voters. Poilievre has framed himself as a champion of free speech and individual rights, contrasting Trudeau's more interventionist approach. Critics, however, question Poilievre's populist tone, arguing it could deepen political polarization. Others point out that his economic plans lack details, leaving uncertainty about their feasibility. While Poilievre presents himself as a break from the status quo, voters will need to weigh whether his policies provide sustainable solutions, or simply exploit dissatisfaction with Trudeau's government. As Canada approaches the 2025 election, it finds itself at a political crossroads. Trudeau's Liberals face an uphill battle to reclaim public trust and deliver tangible results amid economic and social challenges. Meanwhile, Poilievre's Conservatives present an alternative that appeals to growing frustration, but raises questions about implementation and inclusivity.